Neil, welcome back.
I love being here.
Yeah, we missed you last week, but our guest this week, I would say you hold her pretty close to your heart, so we had to have you back.
Yeah, it's my wife, Mary Westfall. She's the best. Literally, like she's the best Mary Westfall that exists. I don't know any other ones. But even if there was like 1,000, she'd still be the best,
Yeah, I think you're a little bit biased, but I mean, in the best way possible.
Mm-mm.
No, you're not biased.
No.
Not
it's
playing
been proven.
favorites.
She's the best. She's the best one. No, yeah, I was really happy that she said, yeah, I would like to do your podcast. Because for whatever reason, like we do this podcast and like we ask people, I'm like, oh, they're going to say no. Like in my head, I'm like, they're probably going to say no.
Yeah.
I saw a joke the other day, people making fun of people doing podcasts. They're like, I always tell people I'm going to like, let's wait 6 weeks. And they're like, your podcast will go away and then none of it will be here anymore. And then I don't have to do your podcast anymore. And I was like, now I understand what people think about people with podcasts, but we're serious. We're dead serious here.
Yeah, we're going, and I kind of understand the sentiment of waiting until somebody's a little more into it to be a guest. So often when somebody hit me up, if they don't have at least 10 episodes, I'll be like, hey, I'll be your 10th guest. Because I want to make sure that they're going to put in the time. So I put in the time and it makes sense. But I get it. Some people do something and they fade away after a little bit. But hey, we're coming up on 6 months here.
We're basically toddlers of the podcast game.
And if we were a cat, we'd be like, how old is that? Like 9 years, 4.5 years old?
Yeah, like if we were cats and humans at the same time, we'd be coming up on being able to eat solid food.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what? We're going to be able to drive soon.
On a scale of 1 to 2, 1 being yes and 2 being no, how many people skip our intro, do you think?
0.
Yeah. All right, cool. We're so happy you're here. This week on Don't Shit on the Bus, we have, like Neil said, the wonderful Mary Westfall. Mary Westfall is a touring chef. Well, she was a private chef before. Well, you'll learn more about it once we get into it. But yeah, Neil, tell us about her career path.
She's not a touring chef anymore. I changed that. We had a baby. It's great. She can't go on tour anymore because there's a baby. But she's incredible. She has worked for some of the biggest names in the touring game. She was Travis Barker's personal chef. That's how I met her. She was out on the road with Blink-182. Before that, she was Ellie Goulding's personal chef. She got her whole start out in LA, working for Jeremy Piven. All happened through chance, just being in the right place at the right time. And we've talked about it a lot. Networking is so important in this industry and a lot can change in just one night. And that happened for her. So she was out having dinner at Crossroads in LA with her manager at the time. And Ron Jeremy and Jeremy Piven were at the restaurant. She went in there, made a tweet. Within a couple weeks, she was Jeremy Piven's personal chef. And just like that, her whole luck and her whole world, her whole existence changed. And so it's crazy. It can happen like that.
Yeah, and we definitely stress that, like, we don't really care your path to get into the music industry. I mean, we care, but like everything's acceptable. Like everybody's welcome. Find your way, make it work. Welcome. You're all welcome.
We were talking before we started recording. We're like, if you're in a fight in the real world, there's no rules. It's kind of the same way with this, It's like when it comes to your success in the music industry, there's almost no rules. And as creative as you can be, it really works. Like it helps, Like people have seen almost everything, right? The people that you're going to go try and work for or the tour you're going to try and get on, they've seen everything. Be creative, be yourself. It makes a difference. With that being said, Mary Mattern, she fucking did it. And then she became Mary Westfall.
I blame you.
Yeah, it was my fault. I asked her and she said yes. She's like, yeah, I'll be Mary Westfall. Yeah.
Neil, I know your favorite part is the Patreon and announcing the new patrons. And last week we only had one, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think people were saving up for waiting for you to come back. No offense, Connor, because they know it's your favorite part. So now that you're back, we've got 4.
To be honest, though, I talked to my really good friend and they joined.
Who is it?
Jesus.
Okay, so then how is their name pronounced?
They go by either Jesus or Jesus, depending on the day. Sunday, Jesus. Friday, Jesus. I don't know.
Wow, that is a good place to be in the world.
Yeah. But then there's a couple others, and they're just as important as Jesus on Sunday. And that's Cat, Dove, and Sam.
Welcome, Cat, Dove, Sam, and Jesus/Jesus to the Patreon. We'll see you on the Discord, and we appreciate your support.
Yeah, we really do. It's amazing how much love we have for all of you.
Exciting news, Neil.
Yes, what?
Bag tags are in. Last chance. This next week or whenever I get the stickers, actually, you've got something you're signing. We're signing a little postcard. We've got some stickers. We got some bag tags. We're going to send them out to everybody who is a patron. We don't care if it's 1 month or 5 months. We just want everybody to have one. So Get on there, sign up. We'll send you a bag tag get on.
The worst thing that can happen is you can lose your bag. But if you have a bag tag, at least people know where to send the bag that they found of yours.
Yeah, it's cool. We have a dedicated page on our website. So if they go to it, they can submit a form with the number, and then we'll know whose it is. And then we can send it to them.
That's genius. I wish I thought of that, but I didn't.
It's okay. We
You
did
did.
this together. It was a group effort. You could take credit. We thought of it together.
Okay. So this is Mary Westfall, and she's a badass, and you're going to love this episode because she's just incredible, and her story is really inspiring, and she helps you navigate this world better than anyone else that I know. She's just a badass. And if you're a girl out there and you're wondering, how do I get on tour and how do I make it work? She is the perfect example of how you do it. And she does it with grace, and she's incredible. And if you have any questions, don't feel like you shouldn't be able to reach out, because you can, and she'll answer any questions that you have. She's amazing like that. So without further ado, Mary Westfall.
And happy Mother's Day, Mary.
You. Hello, my beautiful wife.
Hi.
Hi, Neil's
Adam.
beautiful wife.
You're married to her too?
No, Neil's beautiful wife.
Oh.
Your wife. I feel like I've been welcomed into your guys' home for this podcast. And the energy is so relaxing because I can tell that you're parents. Because
We are.
it's
You
not
look
quite...
tired.
I was going to say it's not quite this exhausted feeling. It's this feeling of like, you couldn't make me mad or upset right now because I deal with so much all the time. Like I don't know how to explain it. You guys just feel like, hey, how's it going?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you couldn't make us mad or upset anyways. But I get what you're saying. This is pretty easy considering, I mean, for Mary especially, she's the one that's like Superwoman and does all this stuff. And I just kind of have to take over whenever she physically can't continue to do it, you know?
Yeah, I was.
And you do such a good job at that.
She's like, Neil, I've been working for 12 hours straight. Please do this for 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I was saying before you got here, Neil, I was saying thank you to Mary because I know every time we get you, it means Mary is working. And I know how often we get you. So thank you, Mary, for not only doing what you do, but doing what you do so we can do what we do.
Yeah, of course.
She's the best.
Yes. I'll put a vote in that.
Okay. So, Mare, how were you? Did you get your first job when you were 12 years old?
I'm so good. I did get my first job when I was 12 years old.
How do you
Really?
know so much about our guests, Neil?
I was 13. I worked at Dunkin' Donuts, and I had to get my school to sign a paper saying that I could work because legally you couldn't unless you were doing good in school.
Work release?
So you had to get what's that?
I'm trying to remember what that's called. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but keep going.
Oh yeah, no, I don't remember what it's called either. But yeah, you'd have to get your school to sign a paper because I really wanted to work for some reason at Dunkin' Donuts. And that was my first job, yeah.
I just picture like, when people are getting held back from a fight and you're like putting your arm out, I picture you like that, but for work. You're like, no, let me at him. Let me at Dunkin' Donuts. I need to work.
Yes.
I'm a teenager now.
Is this when
I
your
think I
love
just
for
like wanted
donuts
to hang out
started?
with my friends. Yeah. I hated donuts for a very long time after that because if you've ever worked at Dunkin' Donuts, you know that you come home smelling like donuts and everything you own smells like donuts, and it's just like fried sugar. It's not great after working there for a couple months, but
How long did you have that job?
I probably worked there for like 6 months and then I was over it.
I
And then I
feel
became a babysitter or something.
like every job people get when they're that age lasts for 6 months, but it feels like it's like 3 years. But you look back, you're like, that was only
it
6
felt
months.
like a really long time. Yeah. Oh, I worked at a dry cleaner after that. That's right. And then they made me the manager and I was like 16 years old. And I was like, I shouldn't have this much responsibility over a full company. It was probably like a drug front for something, to be honest. They didn't care.
They're like, yeah, you can, whatever you're doing's fine. That'll work.
Yeah.
We're cool with that.
You're showing up to work. You got it. Yeah.
You're more responsible than these other 7 people that work here. So, yeah, you can be manager.
Yeah.
You actually care. That's great.
Right.
Well, we went right into it, but thank you for joining us today. We'll be doing our intro for you separately, but it's cool. Like the idea behind getting you on this is we wanted to explore other jobs that exist on the road that they're not the first jobs that get added, but when does a personal chef or whatever you want to classify it as get added to a tour and why?
Do you mean at what level?
Yeah, like
Or do you mean like kind of like in the planning process?
at what level? Like when does an artist, or how do they decide like we need to have our own chef?
I think it comes down to dietary restrictions, at least for my case. Most of the time and most of the tours that I've been on, other artists and like openers are fine with eating catering. But I feel like as you make more money and have dietary restrictions, you want someone that can make you food every day, because food is such a eating is such a massive part of, you know, your job. You want to eat good food and you want to stay healthy on tour, and that's not always possible, especially with catering. Catering is just doing the best they can to feed a massive amount of people. And so it's my job to come in and create menus that will, you know, keep you healthy on the road.
That makes
Healthy,
sense.
happy. I mean, food is like one of the biggest
Right.
things when I was touring, especially when I was vegan. It was one of the biggest things that like just made me happy. I'm like, oh, a good meal. I would pay. I feel like once we got started, like on that Europe tour when I was vegan, I would have paid any amount of money to be able to eat good food every single day. Like it was so worth it.
It can really warp your day. Like it really affects your day tremendously. And what were you going to say?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, you have to have, I mean, as Neil, you know, like an Adam, X amount of energy to get through the night, right? So whatever you do that day is going to dictate, you know, how much energy you have on stage. So I definitely think that people hire personal chefs to facilitate that and make sure that regardless of whatever catering is that day, that it's a constant in their schedule. And also, like, people are just creatures of habit as well. And I think when you get to that level, like, you want something that you know is going to be good, you know is going to be consistent, regardless of what city you're in. And there are catering companies that will travel with tours, but it's very rare that happens anymore. Tours mainly use catering companies, whatever like the local catering is.
It's like in Southern California, you can get the same catering for like 5 stops or 6 stops.
Right.
But then once you get out of that area, it's whoever's in Arizona, whoever's in New Mexico,
Right.
or whatever.
Or like,
Yeah.
I've had it in, maybe you can explain to me why, Mary, but I've had it in the UK, like, you know, is that just because everything's closer there? We'll have like the same one for like our 5 Europe arena shows or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense.
I also know too, it's like being at home and like being on, when you're at a certain level on tour, being able to carry those like creature comforts on the road with you means so much for your mental health and for like getting through that time away from home. Like, so if you're used to having a personal chef at home, which I'm sure Travis Barker, that's how you guys kind of like got started, is like you went on tour with him because you were his personal chef at home, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to not tour anymore. When I was his personal chef, I had just gotten off tour with Ellie, and I was going to do my last tour with her like 3 months later. And in that time, I was cooking for Travis and a couple of other clients. And I was like, I'm not touring anymore. This is going to be my last tour with Ellie. And then I started cooking for Travis, and he found out that I toured, and he's like, hey, do you want to come on tour with us?
Shit. He knows.
And I'm like, yes, I absolutely do. How are you going to turn that down?
Yeah,
like,
you can't.
And so,
Do you want consistent work all over? Yes.
right.
No, that's great. And
I was just
Neil,
saying too, it's like when you started touring with him, he had you come on tour so that he could continue that feeling of comfort, you know, from being at home, knowing what to expect, and then kind of like continuing that on once he's on the road. And the fact that you've already toured, that's like, I know it as a person like looking to hire someone, that's like one of the biggest things is to make me feel comfortable. Like having a guitar tech or having like a stage manager that you know has done the job for artists either bigger than you or at your size, just gives you that comfort that you need whenever you're out on the road.
Right. And I think as a personal chef too, another part of being a personal chef, regardless of if you're touring, is to be able to be in someone else's space and kind of and make them feel comfortable, in the sense that you're with them all day, every day, and you need to be able to respect their space and be able to kind of just like get in there and get out, and, you know, be that person for them that is doing that specific job, and is able to kind of like act, I don't know how to put it, just like act like a another part of the family.
Yeah.
Because essentially they probably see you more than they see most of your family.
Yeah.
Most of their family, rather.
Especially if you're eating 3 meals a day. It's like you're around all day. You're there.
Well,
You are a member
and
of the
it's
family.
not
I'm on
just
5.
3 meals a day. It's snacks and smoothies, and I mean, you're doing their whole dietary needs. It's not just 3 meals a day, you know.
Well, Neil, you might be able to agree here. You started us off great by asking Mary how she got started. And I was like, well, how do you become a chef on the road? But maybe we should circle back and figure out the things that happened between, let's see, working at the dry cleaner and then touring with Ellie Goulding and Travis Barker.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a jump
1
there.
week apart. That's how it started.
My
Ellie
fault.
Goulding needed something dry clean.
I started touring with Shai Hulud. I sold merch for Shai Hulud a very long time ago. I think I was like 20. And
how did you?
A friend of mine was filling in as the drummer.
No, you're good. That's what I was going to ask. I wanted to know the story.
Yeah. A friend of mine was filling in as the drummer, and he's like, hey, do you want to do this tour? I was, at that time, I was the record label for Stillborn Records, which is Jamie Jasta from Hatebreed's record label. And I met Mike, who is the drummer. He was the drummer for Unearthed, and then he went over to drum for Shai Hulud, and I started touring with Shai Hulud. I did a couple tours with them. I got a job in Baltimore at another record label, and touring was never like my goal or something that I wanted to do long term. I just did it because I was like, I'll take the summer off and go tour and whatever. And it was really cool. It opened my mind to a lot of different positions that you could have in the touring world. And then I got out of the music industry to figure out what I really wanted to do long term. Because I think a lot of people that tour, at least if you're like touring with your friends, you know, when you first start, you would love to make it long term, but you don't really think it's going to be like a long term thing. You either just like doing it for the summer, or you're like driving your friend's van for like a tour, and you know. And so when I stopped touring, I became a nanny in Baltimore, and I just started cooking. Like I just wanted to eat better, and the farmer's market was right across the street from my house, so I would like spend all this money on like gorgeous produce, and then it would all just go bad in my refrigerator. Like it consistently, I was losing a lot of money, or I'd like order takeout, so it would just sit there. So I was determined to teach myself how to cook. And this was like in the beginning of Instagram, when Instagram just kind of started to become something that like people used to like promote businesses. And, you know, it had been around, I think, at that point for a couple of years. But I started to use it as like a food blog, or what we know now as like food bloggers. I would post food that I was making, whether it was burnt or whatever. Like I would post my mistakes, and I think people related to how real it was. Like it wasn't all like pretty, and I was definitely like, I was teaching myself, and I made it known that like I was learning, and like it was not something to judge, and I just wanted to help other people learn from my mistakes, basically. And I wanted to create an account that I could see my progression and how I was growing as a cook. And this was all just me doing it at home. And then I got a couple of jobs with different companies, working with different companies like Goulding and a tofu company, and they would send me products, and I would cook with them. And I kind of decided that that's where I wanted to go. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted it to have to do with food. And then I went out to Los Angeles, and I went to a restaurant called Crossroads. And I made a joke on Twitter because Ron Jeremy, if you don't know what Crossroads is, it's a vegan restaurant, a vegan fine dining restaurant in Los Angeles by Chef Tal. And Chef Tal was Oprah Winfrey's personal chef before he opened Crossroads.
Legit.
And he, I had been waiting to go there since I decided to be vegan at that point, which was like 2 years. And while I was there, Ron Jeremy was there, and Jeremy Piven. And I was sitting in the restaurant, and I'm like, this is such like an LA thing to happen. I had never been to LA at that point, so this was like mind blowing to me. I'm like, what is happening? Like, not only are like these people in this restaurant, they're also, it's like a vegan restaurant, you know, something that in Baltimore where I was living at the time, like it was kind of taboo, you know, like there was like 2 vegan restaurants and they were nowhere near what Crossroads is. They were like granola and, you know, fried
French
tofu
fries.
and that's about it. Right. And so I made a joke on Twitter stating, I think it was a Ron Jeremy Piven night at Crossroads, whatever, like something really stupid. And Jeremy Piven messaged me and was like, hey, I'm looking for a personal chef. Do you have a manager that I can reach out to? And I was like, yeah, totally. And I told him this now, and he thinks it's insane that this happened. I literally, my friend Melissa at the time, I'm like, hey, can you act as my manager? Like, I really want to take this job because I think I can do it. And she wanted me to move to Los Angeles. Yeah, she wanted me to move to Los Angeles. So she was like, yeah, I'll absolutely do it. So we made up like an email address for her.
Yeah, we'll get her here.
She did that and reached out to Jeremy. I went to cook for him a couple of times while he was filming Entourage the movie. And he's like, okay, cool, let's do this. Do you want to be my personal chef? And I was like, yeah, I absolutely do. Like, so, and just everything about it, I loved the feeling of just like feeding someone in order for them to be able to do what they do best. Right.
Yeah.
So
you're like enabling them. You're like part of their team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
That's so sick.
And he moved, he has an apartment in New York. And so I ended up moving back home. I'm originally from Suffern, New York. So it's like 40 minutes outside of New York City. He was filming in New York. So I was working for him while he filmed and then decided to move to Los Angeles because he convinced me that there was a whole market there for vegan personal chefs and that I can get like a whole clientele list. So I decided to move to LA, not having any like real focus on what I was going to do. No, like I had 2 friends there and I was like, I'll just figure it out. I feel like that's such like the quintessential like LA story. I'm just going to move to LA and I'll figure it out when I get there, you know?
Yeah. That's so cool.
And what's up?
I never knew this story. I mean, like, I know you, but like, I never sat you down. I was like, so tell me about your beginnings to your career.
Yeah. It's a very weird, to this day, I think the whole thing's so weird. It's just such a bizarre coincidences. After I decided to move to Los Angeles, Ellie Goulding started following me on Instagram and she wrote me a message and was like, hey, I just became vegan, or she was trying to eat more vegan food. And she was like, your food looks amazing. So I wrote her back and I was like, oh, thank you so much. You know, if you ever need a personal chef on tour, let me know. And she's like, actually, I'm touring in 2 months. Do you want to be my personal chef? And I was like, what? Like,
just 2 yeses.
Yes, I've toured before. I've been a personal chef at this point for about 6 months. Like, I felt confident that I could do it. And so I got the tour with Ellie and I did a couple of tours with her. But for me, having like a home base was more important. So I really wanted to not tour and make Los Angeles my home and just work with clients there. Ironically, even just being at home in Los Angeles, I mainly worked for musicians, a couple of actors, but mainly musicians. And then Travis hit me up and was like, hey, I need a personal chef. Through a mutual friend of ours. And so I started cooking for him at home. And yeah, like I said, he just asked me to tour. And that's kind of the basis of an even longer story of how I got into it. But
well, that's good.
You had multiple experiences of touring though, which is kind of rad because like even touring when you were younger kind of set you up to be able to say yes to Ellie Goulding and be like, yeah, I have experience touring, you know? And
oh yeah, if I had never toured, there's no way that I would have been like, yeah, I can make this work. But I think because I knew the basics of touring and how the dynamics worked, I knew that I could at the very least figure it out.
You're like, this is not going to be harder than Shai Hulud tour.
Right.
Well,
even though it probably was harder because I've seen some of the kitchen setups that you have and like how much stuff you had to set up on tour, and it might have been harder. Maybe. I don't know.
I think that is the hardest part of being a personal chef on tour is you don't have a designated area where you're set up. You have to figure out a place to set up at 6 o'clock in the morning when they're loading in. And then you have to figure out whether or not you have enough electric to make it work. You like everything you're doing yourself. And it's kind of just like being a chef in a restaurant where you're not only just you're not only cooking. You're not a cook. You're also a mathematician. You're also a plumber, a electrician. You know, you're doing every single job.
You wear a lot of hats, as they say.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when you were telling us your story, one thing that stuck out to me is you said, you know, there was a lot of bizarre coincidences that kind of put me in this spot. But I was wondering if, going back and thinking about those bizarre coincidences, do you think that either maybe you didn't put it in the story and you do feel this way, or maybe you haven't thought about it this way, but do you think a lot of the credit actually goes to you as a person and how you handle these situations? Or were there like underlying, I don't know, attributes that you have as a person that really guaranteed that your success in these? I mean, it's from what it sounded like through the story, it's like, hey, I got this big client and another big client. Like, what did it take from your end to be just ready to undertake these big steps?
I just think the fact that I said yes and I didn't fully, I wasn't fully confident that I could do it, but to me, if I failed at it, I failed at it. You know what I mean? Like, the worst thing that could happen would be that Jeremy Piven says my food sucks. Okay, cool. And then I just keep doing, I keep trying to figure out.
You don't really lose much for taking the chance, you know?
I didn't mean to interrupt
absolutely.
you.
It's just an opportunity. And don't get me wrong, like, I've definitely failed a ton, but I think that the reason that I've been so successful at what I've done is because I've said yes a lot to the things that I've succeeded at and to the things that I've inevitably ended up failing at. But
it's like the ready aim or ready fire aim, like where you're just going to like go and do it. And once you get there, you'll adjust if you need to.
You just make it work. And you learn, like, even if you fail in the end, like, you learn so much along the way. Like, even if you worked for Jimmy Piven and he fired you 6 months later, like, the stuff you learned during those 6 months is, you couldn't even fathom those things. Like, you can't even know those Google searches.
School. Yeah, there's no school for those lessons, you know?
So you have
and
to.
I think another thing you have to be as a personal chef is you have to be able to adapt to things and adapt to situations and environments. And I feel like I'm really good at that. It takes someone who can not, have a panic attack. The fact that there is an electric somewhere, it's like, it takes someone to be like, okay, this is the situation and we just need to fix it. Like, you don't have time on tour to be like, to complain, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do, you won't be on tour for long.
Right.
You have to adapt. Like, people don't have time to listen to you complain, really. They need to do their job and you need to figure out yours.
It's kind of like you have to be a problem solver. Like, that's like a prerequisite going in there. 'Cause like you said, like, you're your own boss, but you're also your team. Like, you're what is there to get the job done. It's not like you have 10 other people working with you, like in a restaurant or something like that, you know?
And don't get me wrong. I mean, everyone on tour definitely works together, the tour manager, to make sure things run smoothly, but they're not going to listen to a problem that you have that they hired you to problem solve. That's part of your job, is to problem solve.
I always think of it as like, I don't want to ever, like, whether I'm in the position of being the business owner or I'm the employee, like, I don't want to ever pay somebody to do, like, I don't want to do their job if I'm paying them to do their job. I want them to just handle that. Yes. Like, if they show up to work and then ask me to do their job, it's like, wait a second, that's what you're here for.
Right. It's like you're paying someone to do a job to save time and to be able to put all of yourself into something else that you have to do. It's like, you don't need to be like, oh shit, you know what? Let me do that for you. 'Cause it's like, you don't have time.
And I learned that very early on. And it's something that I definitely learned. I did not know that going into touring. I was like, oh, everyone's in this together. And like I said, they are to a certain extent, but like, you are there to do your job, and it is a lax environment. So you really have to be someone who's self-motivated.
I don't think, especially with maybe a chef or something like that, there's nobody else on the tour that even knows everything you have to do. Like, they're not going to know if you're not doing your job. You're all they know is like, is there food for the artist or not? Because everything else is like a long list of things they've never even heard about.
Right. They don't care if I can't find a ride to the grocery store. Like, I need to find a ride to the grocery store, It's like, if that food's not there, whatever that excuse is, like, all of that stuff should be planned the day before, the week before, So it's like, anything that can arise comes down to adaptability.
I also think too, it's like you said, that's with almost all jobs on tour, right? Like you need to advance a lot of the things going on the daily basis, because when it comes down to it, no one else really cares why. It's just the fact that it's not done, right? Like if it's a guitar tech and he doesn't have strings, they don't care that the strings on the guitar are broken. They care that it works and it's able to play the show. Like, and the same thing with that. And that, to me, every time waking up and seeing you like art, you're like, yeah, I've already been to the grocery store and a farm and a farmer's market. I'm like, who is this Superwoman on tour? And then we got married. Just kidding. And so, yeah.
I feel like you guys, sometimes I feel like I know we're all looking at each other, but if you guys are looking at each other, I feel like you're communicating in a whole nother level I don't exist on because you guys are in love. So I'm like, I'm here, but like you guys can speak different languages than me.
I honestly, I am thoroughly enjoying hearing Mary's story. It's like every chance I get to hear it, I'm stoked.
I mean, you do kind of encompass the saying that people would sometimes call fake it till you make it, even though I believe that kind of has a negative connotation that isn't really accurate. But, you know, it's just...
I think even people that are faking it till they make it, as they say, they're talented. You can't totally fake it. You can't... There is a certain extent of talent. I think it's more so those people just taking that chance. Because you could get the chance and fail at it.
Right.
But you got the chance and you didn't. So I don't necessarily think that that's faking it. I think you're just good at what you do. Mm-hmm. If you get the chance and you succeed at it.
It's one of those things too, where it's like, hey, you need 6 years experience to get this job. You know, it's like, how do you get 6 years experience? Like you have to go and take a chance. And that's ultimately what you did, is you put yourself out there. You believed in yourself. Someone gave you a chance and you just took advantage of it. It was really just you taking what you knew already and just going, I think I can learn the rest as I go, which is pretty awesome.
So moving forward, I guess if I could set this up, like we know what you do, you know, somebody hires you, you're a chef, you go on tour, you make food.
Yes.
What, like for people who like, it's kind of self-explanatory, but can you explain, we're going to go in depth, like what your daily routine is like so people can kind of understand. But if you were to take a step back and look down on it, what would it be? Is it like you make 3 meals a day? You build a kitchen? Like what are the things you kind of have to do each day as the chef on tour?
Yeah, so the night before, we'll start with the night before, you send the artist their menu and what they want, and you create different options for them. Usually it's 3 or 4 options. If you're good at your job, you will either call different purveyors that night before or week before to see what local produce is in each city, and then you'll create a menu based on that. When you get to that city in the morning, right when the trucks are loading out is when I'll go to the grocery store. I'll try to find a local Whole Foods most of the time, because a lot of artists have specialty protein powders or different types of energy drinks that they like. And most of the time you can find them at Whole Foods or a health food store. But when you're in the middle of nowhere, sometimes Montana, you just have to make do.
Yeah.
Right. You have to make do with your local grocery store, or a lot of the times those towns will have really good farmers markets, actually. So.
And this is in the morning, you said?
What's that?
This is right in the morning. This is like the first thing you do.
Yeah. So this is I'll usually get back from the grocery store around 7:00. And then at 7:00, most of the time our stuff will be loaded out and then we'll have to set it up. So that'll include making sure we're turning our ovens on so they're heated, making sure that before that, making sure we can find the right electric, making sure that our tables are popped up, our prep tables are ready, our knives are sharpened, making sure that we have everything we need for the day, and making sure that nothing went bad from the night before. Just kind of doing a kitchen overview, a checklist. I would have a list of things that basically just a breakdown of everything that needed to be done in the morning with the equipment. I would have to find where the closest 3-compartment sink is to do dishes and hand wash, just make sure those sanitary requirements are available. And then I would start making breakfast. For everyone, it's different. With certain artists, I'd have to wake up at, even earlier than 6 a.m. and start making smoothies. For other people, they wouldn't get out of their bus until 4 p.m. So, it's different for everyone. But roughly the day would go, I would make breakfast. I would start prepping for lunch and dinner at the same time because certain things take, X amount of time to make throughout the day. And then I would, depending on how many people I was cooking for, I would try to make sure that everyone was accounted for. And I would go and talk to the tour manager, make sure that there aren't any new people added to the guest list that I would need to cook for, and just making sure that I had everything I needed. And then just cooking for them and making sure that they had everything they needed before they went on stage. And then once they were on stage, I would start prepping after show food. And then after I gave them their after show food, I would do one last check before I started breaking down. And then we would have to get everything on the truck during loadout. And then I would go to sleep every night by midnight.
Jeez.
And that's what the typical day looks like.
How many? Sorry, go Neil.
I was just going to say, so when you're there, do you carry all of the food with you? What do you do with the cold items?
Different tours, different equipment. So one tour, we couldn't carry any cold items. They didn't have a means for transportation. So that was really challenging in the fact that I would need to use up all of the ingredients that I got for that day.
Oh, wow.
And a way that we did that was I cooked for a lot of the immediate staff that was around them. So personal assistants, nannies, whoever was in their immediate group. In order for that food not to go to waste, I would make sure that everyone else was fed.
Is that something that you would do often? How many people do you usually cook for?
It depends. If it's a hometown show, sometimes 50 people. If it's in the middle of nowhere, 1. It really depends on how many people are around them.
So if let's say I'm Ellie Goulding, and I hire you as my chef, are you cooking for just me, or are you cooking for
I get your question. Yeah. Am I part of catering, or am I just... Because essentially,
you can explain
a personal chef is just cooking for the artist, right? They're cooking for the artist, and if they want you to, they can pay for you to cook for more people. But essentially, your job is to cook for them. You are there to make sure they are getting everything that they need. And everyone else eats catering because it's already paid for. It's there, unless they have some special dietary needs.
So when we were on tour with Blink, I know that Travis's entourage was rather large. Did you cook for all of them, or how did that work?
I cooked for Travis. I cooked for Travis and his family, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
And then when we were in Europe, I just remember their kids would always bring us potato chips that were freshly cooked. Do you remember that, Neil?
Yep.
They would just, because they would get these fresh meals, and they would just want our trash rider food.
Yeah,
We'd trade
They're
them.
just kids. They just wanted to be kids. Yeah,
Sorry.
they had these gourmet, amazing potato chips that were probably some of the best potato chips I've ever eaten, made freshly for them. And then they'd bring them in and hang out with us and be like, "Hey, so what are you guys doing? Can I have some of your Doritos?" And we're like, "Yeah, can I eat your potato chips?" And they're like, "Yeah, all right, cool."
Wait, Mary, when you're on tour,
great.
I know this might seem silly because it's so, well, maybe it's not that silly, but what's your team like? Is it just you? If you're just cooking for Ellie, is it you? Or how many people work for you?
Yeah, it was just me on Ellie. And then when I was touring with Blink, it was me and another chef who was hired through a catering company, which anyone looking to get into this field, I feel like the best route to do that, instead of just showing up at a restaurant hoping someone asks you to be a personal chef, is to go through a catering company.
Okay.
And a touring catering company. There's a couple out there that are pretty good. And just to get the experience through that. And a lot of the times artists will reach out to them to hire personal chefs. So I had someone else working with me so that we could cover all of Blink, Adam, and he came through Latitude 45, which is one of the catering companies out in California.
Well, we'll have to get a list of those from you afterwards. I just know the one that does Warped Tour, like Tata, and they do some venues and stuff like that. They're not vegan, but
They
Yeah,
make
yeah.
vegan stuff sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the catering companies now are getting better at vegan food because there's an exponentially larger amount of people becoming vegan these days. So, especially in the touring worlds.
Yeah.
Us health people. Hey, if you're gonna
Yeah,
be out
isn't
on the
it funny
road,
how that's changed so much? Like, just touring in general. Like, at least the whole like rock and roll persona of like just drinking and doing drugs, and now people are like taking beat shots and like
doing
just
yoga in
trying
the
to.
morning
Gotta get the
together and
balance in.
meditating tonight. Night.
Yeah.
I love
It's
it.
like, if I'm going to drink a bottle of Jack Daniels, I got to wake up and drink some carrot juice as well.
Yeah.
That's what I do anyways.
Balance.
I feel like since we did the Blink tour, the amount of people that I know personally going into that vegan lifestyle has grown exponentially. And even here in Orlando, like where we live now, there was like, I think when you moved here, there was like 3 or 4 vegan restaurants, and like obviously because of COVID, a couple of restaurants closed, but like right before COVID, I think there was like probably like 8 or 9 or some ridiculous number like that.
Oh yeah, and I think in the next couple of years it's just gonna get even crazier. I think that there's definitely people realizing different benefits of being vegan, and I think that there's definitely a market to create more vegan restaurants. So yeah, I definitely see that happening in the next couple of years. I mean, one of the reasons that I was hesitant about moving to Orlando, which if you're listening to this and you don't know, on that Blink tour, that's where Neil and I met. And after we were trying to decide whether or not he should move to Los Angeles or I should move to Orlando. And for me, like Orlando had no vegan food. It had like
We had a couple
a
restaurants.
small vegan scene. Right. It was small, but
It was not LA.
I couldn't
I
couldn't translate my job. Right. I couldn't translate what I did in Los Angeles to Orlando. So we kind of got sold on the taxes issue of that conversation because taxes are obviously cheaper, and I was still touring at that time, so it made sense.
Yeah.
I'm bummed. I miss you guys over here, but
What'd you say?
I say for selfish reasons, I'm bummed, but I'll just have to make do with Donna Jean, and every time you guys are in town, just go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, Mary's really good friends with the chef at Donna Jean, Roy.
I know.
And
I'm like, I know Mary. Hi.
Roy was in music for a little bit, right? Did he ever tour?
Yeah. He was in a band. Yeah, he toured for a while. God, he's gonna kill me for not knowing this. I forget what band he was in, but
No,
yeah, he was in a band for a while.
You just go, Roy was in, and then we'll just overdub it.
Okay, sick. Like,
It'll be my
Roy
voice.
was in. Nice.
Now just say every sound in the English language, and we'll piece it together. Deep fake style.
I feel like food and music has so many crossovers. Like a lot of people that work in kitchens also are in music and vice versa. Like there's tons of people, even just in our kitchen at Winter Park Biscuit Company, that have toured before or were musicians prior to getting into the kitchen. I feel like it's because the kitchen is just kind of like a breeding ground for misfits. You know, people that
End quote.
people that want to like an alternative lifestyle, I guess.
It's also one of those things too, where it's like you can have tattoos and you're not like out like front of house, right? Like if you were at a fine dining restaurant, like they probably would not want to hire, unfortunately, people with a lot of tattoos to do like, you know, the waitress or waiter job or.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's changing now, but yeah, I'm for sure.
And I feel like back in the day, like that's
10
why
years.
a lot of chefs were like, I can do what I want. You know, I'm back here, I wear a chef coat, or I do what, you know, it's like, it wasn't like a prerequisite wasn't, you had to look a certain way. You could look any way you wanted. And I don't know, me personally, that was one of my favorite parts about traveling and being on tour is I could go try out so many amazing restaurants. And I know that like once, if touring ever stopped, I would really, one of my goals before we even met each other was I wanted to own a bar or a restaurant or both or something that was like that. And it was kind of a goal of mine to kind of get into that because of all the places that I visited on the road and how much I love those experiences. And maybe a lot of people that kind of got out of touring earlier than I did, that's probably like why they found themselves kind of being like, well, I could get into food, you know, it's something I also know and love.
I also think the work ethic is the same as Mary's kind of said, like, and I've heard Neil talking about what the people are like that work in your guys' kitchen in Florida. It's just like this crazy work ethic that you can really only achieve, at least I feel, when you're passionate and love something and believe in it. And I feel like that parallels a lot between music and food because people feel so deeply connected to it. And
yeah, absolutely. Because it's another creative outlet too. You're creating these things that then people will go on to either love or hate, right? And you get kind of that instant gratification from it. If someone's going to complain about your food, you'll find out immediately. Kind of like, if you're a musician and you're standing on stage and everyone's just staring at you, kind of that equivalent. And you get this gratification of making people happy.
Yeah, there's so much value, like you were saying. Like, it feels so good to be the person that's giving this artist, whether it's an actor or a musician, their energy to do the thing that they do. Like, that's, and I feel like music is similar. It's like you're giving these kids or these people at this show the best night of their life. Like, what a beautiful thing to be a part of in the world, not to get too mushy, but that's so awesome.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is.
Man, sorry, I like, I'm just like reminiscing of like what touring was like.
We just have a moment of silence for touring.
It's gonna be so cool when it comes back.
Oh, Jesus, I don't even know what to do with myself. Definitely gonna have to like run a bunch just so I can even put my guitar on and go on stage. You know what I mean? Like who's that guy? That can't be Neil. Holy shit, it is.
Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we checked off most of the things in our list to kind of give a view of what it's like to be a chef. Is there anything that we're missing? Because I was going
to ask her, what are some of the things that someone would kind of do before getting into this? Like, what are some things that would be like, we've asked a guitar tech, like, what are some qualities that you would have to have before getting into being a guitar tech on the road? What would you say some of the things that are necessary to be a chef out on tour?
I would think just your basic skills in the kitchen, sharpening up on your do you mean just to cook in general, or do you mean as if you're already a cook and you want to tour?
Well, I think that like, if let's say that there's someone listening to this and they don't know what they're going to do with their life, or they know they like food, or they know they love music and they kind of see themselves being on tour. What are some things that they could be like, oh, I kind of already have a lot of those qualities and maybe this would be a cool job for me?
I think just getting in the kitchen and getting creative, making as much different food as possible, because that's another thing on tour. Like, someone can tell you that they want something made that you've never made before, and you really have to be able to, like I said earlier, adapt to that. So just learning your basic cooking skills of every kind of avenue, every cuisine that you could possibly do. And you're not going to learn all of it. If you get into it, you'll realize really quickly that a lot of it you learn on the job. Mm-hmm. But I think, just educating yourself on the basics of it. And there's nothing you can truly do to prepare yourself for it. If you are someone that wants to go down this avenue, whether or not you've toured before, I think touring with childhood definitely helped me. But if I didn't have that and I got offered this somehow, whether it be through a catering company or I was just a personal chef in Los Angeles who just wanted to get into the touring aspect of it, I think just having the basic knowledge of how a tour works, mm-hmm. What the day-to-day looks like, what positions people have on tour, and what that looks like for your day-to-day, as far as what a tour manager will do to help you, what local crews will do to help you,
who speaks to who, how parts talk to each other. Mary, if you know of any podcasts that people could listen to for this, just let us know and we'll send them to that direction. Like, I don't know if
did you say?
So if you know of any podcasts that like talk about being on the road or anything, let us know. We'll help them out.
I know. My advice is to just listen to this podcast on repeat until you get the job.
All right. And we're stopping recording. Good job, guys. That's all we needed. We can just...
I was gonna say, I know that like before we met, like a lot of the things that I learned about cooking were through like cookbooks or, looking online at different resources. Like, do you have any resources that you could recommend to someone that maybe wanted to get into?
Yeah, YouTube now more than ever is an incredible tool to utilize to learn basic skills, basic knife skills, just mise en place, just making
what is
like
that?
even sanitation.
What'd you just call me?
What is a mise en place?
It is the way you're making. It's basically making sure everything is in place before you start cooking.
Okay.
So making sure you have all the ingredients, the right measurements. And then I would say just like looking up how a recipe is made, looking up how certain foods are stored, looking up your local, like honestly, getting a food handler's license would be the next step too. If you don't already have one and you want to get into this field, studying food handlers will absolutely educate you on sanitation and how to handle food correctly at what temperatures they should be kept.
That's huge, right? Because it's like, it's your responsibility to kind of not make sure that no one gets sick from the food you're making, right?
That would be bad.
Correct.
That would be a job loss, I believe, if your artist can no longer perform.
Yes.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Must be, is it nice being a vegan chef because you don't have to handle meat? And like, I feel like that's prone to getting people sick.
You can still absolutely get sick from vegetables. It is actually one of the top foods, romaine lettuce, tomatoes. You can definitely get foodborne illnesses from those things. So I definitely think that it's still a good idea to get your food handler's license.
I wasn't trying to say not to get it, just to clarify.
Right. But I mean, to answer your question, I think it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
Whether it's meat or vegetables, you still have very high risk of contamination if you're not educated in those measurements and temperatures.
It's like that's with anything. Like if you want to get into food in anywhere, that's a great tool to have under your belt. It's like, because like the more things that you can kind of cross off the list, the more likely you are to get a job, especially in like a really high competition market. You know, it's like you show up, you're like, I have great knife. I don't know. Like that's one of the things that's always kind of eluded me is like knife skills. It's like, even though I've tried really hard to get it, it's like, you know, like
you your hands won't move from that position.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just for anyone listening, you can get your food handler's license without working in a restaurant. You can just get it. You can go online, you can study, they'll give you the information, you pay for it. You can just have it in your back pocket as something and just another set of skills that you now have. And if you want to work in a restaurant in the future, it's something that on an application is great to have.
Noted. Might just get it for fun.
I mean, I was talking about this earlier, but like, so if you wanted to be specifically a vegan chef, are there any like cookbooks out there that they could go and get that like maybe would teach them the basics of being a vegan chef that you could recommend?
Yeah, there's a great book called Veganomicon, and it is a...
Did you write it?
No. This is by a chef called Chef Isa. And it's a great basics of vegan cooking, because I'm not going to promote my own cookbook.
I think that there was another one called Simple Vegan Cooking.
There is. I do have a cookbook called Simple Vegan Cooking. Yeah.
Mary, if you're not going to promote your book on a podcast about you doing your job, who is? Come on.
He set you up. Bump set. You got the spike. You didn't get it, but it's okay because he'll do the third.
I think the reason I didn't want to, I saw it. The reason I didn't want to is because I do think that there are cookbooks out there that if you're going into this specific fields that are better, I think the cookbook that I created is more for home cooking, which is great. And it definitely will get you into being more creative in your own kitchen. But like I said, there are other cookbooks out there that are geared towards a wider variety of cooking. And if you're going to take on this job, then that's really what you need.
I like that. You're an honest person.
But when you first start cooking, you're at home though, right? And like if I was like learning cooking for vegan.
Yeah.
Home.
So if you wanted to buy my cookbook, you can buy it on Amazon. It's called Simple Vegan Cooking.
I'm just so
She, like,
proud of
comes
you.
in
And
the
I
room.
think that it's such a cool thing that you have written your own book, and you've written more than one book. And I'm just proud of you. And I think everyone should read it because I did, and it was awesome.
You should write a vegan sci-fi book.
A what?
Sorry, a vegan sci-fi book.
A vegan sci-fi book?
Yeah, a vegan sci-fi book.
Like
the Adventures
how would
of
that work?
Cabbage
Like
and Lettuce or
vegan
something.
aliens?
It's
What'd
like
you say?
cucumbers with like lasers and shit.
Yeah, laser beams. Like
Coming out of their head?
nonfiction, vegan.
I feel like this would need to be a children's book in order for it to make sense.
I'm
to
offended, but
translate
it's
well.
okay.
I have a possible title.
Impossible.
Veggie Tales.
Oh,
Maybe.
that.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, that already exists. All right, should I go? Wait. Well, before we finish up, Mary, do you have any cool? I don't know. Yeah, I know that you work with people who like. For people who don't know, like it's pretty known in this industry. Like we work with a lot of privacy is a big thing, so we don't really tell stories about people, especially with names. But Mary, do you have any stories that happened in the music space or throughout your career that you could share with us that you would like to share that are, I don't know, funny, or a time you overcame a challenging thing on tour, or just a wild ride of an adventure? Other than ending up marrying Neil because you met him on, that's pretty cool.
I think that's the coolest story that I don't have a signed NDA attached to. I think us meeting and just the natural transition into us meeting is pretty incredible. I mean, like, I definitely did not start that tour thinking that I was going to meet the love of my life and I was going to marry him and have the little angel baby that we have now. So I think that is definitely the wildest story, especially because I didn't even want to take the tour because I didn't want to tour. Like, I wanted to stop touring, you know, but because it was Blink, and specifically because it was Travis, like if you ever have the pleasure of meeting him or have had the pleasure of meeting him, you know that he's just one of the most genuinely good people in this world. So there was no way that I was going to say no to that. And the fact that I met my husband, you know,
she heard this like little band called A Day to Remember was going to be on it.
Yeah.
Their stage right guitar player was a hunk.
So I actually never really listened. Well, yes, that's an obvious. Actually, this is a good story. The first time I ever talked to Neil, or the first time I ever heard his voice, I was cooking. I forget where we were, but we were in like an NBA room. Like it was like the NBA press room.
It was the Oklahoma Thunder's arena in Oklahoma City.
That makes sense. I should have just asked for the story. I feel bad that I didn't ask for this story. Like, he's the host of the show. Let's hear it. Go for it.
It's pretty good. And a group of guys walked by the room. Me and Adam were cooking that day.
Not me.
And I just hear someone, yes, not you. And I hear someone go, "Is she going to be on the whole tour?" And I immediately was like, "Oh my gosh, someone doesn't want me on this tour." Like, I like took it as a negative. Like I told Neil this after, you know, we got off tour. And I'm like, yeah, like, you know, someone was like, "Is she going to be on this whole tour?" In the beginning of the tour, and he's like, "Yeah, it was me. I was like asking if you were going to be on this whole tour," because he thought I was a local catering girl.
Yeah, in El Paso.
He's not used to having catering. Like, not everybody is, you know, Travis Barker level.
Well,
you know what I mean? That sounded bad. I didn't mean it to sound bad. I just meant like Travis Barker, I don't know, Neil.
No, I get what you're saying. Not everyone gets to have an amazing personal chef that is also incredible looking.
Right. And I think and to say like Blink as a whole, you know, we were definitely like cooking for Blink as a whole, not just Travis, but yeah.
Well, and at that point in the tour, just so everyone doesn't think I'm an asshole for being like, "Is she going to be on the whole tour?" No, I thought that you were someone that worked at the venue. Because like Adam was saying, not everyone gets to have personal chefs on tour. That's a very unusual thing, especially for A Day to Remember in the world that we're coming from. Blink-182 was the biggest band we'd ever been on tour with at that point. And most of the time, including the time that Adam was with us, we headlined. We were the biggest band. So if we didn't have a chef on the road, there wasn't a chef on the road.
The opener brought a chef out.
What'd you say?
The opener of the tour brought the chef out. I don't know what's going on, but
well, I didn't even know. Like, so
that'd be so funny.
I was like too nervous to talk to this person in El Paso that I thought was like beautiful, and then I saw her the next day, and so I was talking to Davey, our merch guy, and I was like, "Is she gonna be on the whole tour?" was like, what?
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
that's the first
sick.
time I met Davey. Davey came out. I was by the tour buses, and Davey came out and was like, "So what's your deal?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "So what's your deal? What do you do? Why are you here?" And I was like,
Davey's so
I
nice
feel like
too.
you're like, he is. He will go up to anyone, and he does
Well, I
not
also
care at
asked
all.
him.
He's
I
a
also
massive
asked him
human,
to
too. He's
figure
very
out what
tall.
your deal was.
Oh, yeah, it definitely felt like he was vetting me for someone else. He was like, "So what's your deal? Why are you here? What's your, like he definitely made it clear that."
Are you a catering girl in El Paso? No, you're not. Oh, okay. You're actually like someone pretty high up on the. Okay. Oh shit. Okay, you're Travis Barker's chef. Cool. All right.
No, all of
sweet.
Blink-182's chef, not just Travis's.
No, she was
Yes.
definitely just Travis's
Well,
chef.
I was Travis, but
God, I'm getting
we as a
confused.
whole were cooking. So
Yeah, she had a team. It was
I
her
just
and
wanna-
Adam.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then after that, the first time I talked to Neil, he was running, and I said, "Hey," and he kind of just grunted at me. And I was like, "Okay, cool."
I mean, if you know me at all, you know that running is like not a strong suit of mine. Kind of a big guy. It's hard already. And I was nervous. And so I couldn't talk. And so it was a grunt that came out.
Yeah. So then he had Travis's daughter set.
I
us
didn't
up.
have any. No. Okay. First of all, we're friends. Okay. And
She was what, 8 at the time?
She knew me well enough to know that I had a crush.
11, Alabama. Yeah.
She knew me well enough to know that I had she's not 11. She may be 11 years old, like physically, but like mentally, she's not 11. She knew what was going on. She's like, who do you have a
Yeah, she's
crush
a
on
smart
this
girl.
tour? And I'm like, I was like, Alabama, I'm not going to tell you.
You're gonna get me in
I'm not
trouble.
going to talk to you about this. Like in my mind, I'm like, this is completely inappropriate. I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you about this. And she's like, do you have a crush on Katie? I'm like, no, I don't have a crush on Katie. She's like, do you have a crush on Mary? And I'm like, Alabama. And the little pause
She
that
knew.
I had, she goes, 1 second. And I'm like, what? I'm like, Alabama, do not do that. Stop it. And so Alabama ran, and
Sounds like a movie.
She came and got me, and she was like, "Do you have a crush on Neil from A Day to Remember?" And I said, "I don't know who that is." And she goes, "Come with me." So she takes me to their dressing room. Neil's getting changed in the dressing room. And because she knows that I have to find her at a certain point in the day and ask her what she wants for dinner, or if, like what she's going to eat. So she would make it a point to go to A Day to Remember's room so that I would have to go find her.
That's
Yeah, she would just
awesome.
come and hang out with us. Like we basically, her and Landon just were in our room. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
lived in there.
Wait,
And
can I
she
ask
found
something?
that out, and she's just like, I'm gonna make this my mission. You guys are gonna.
And she did. She was our little matchmaker.
Can I ask something before we go on?
Yes.
Do you guys want to explain, or if there's anything to be said for like how this can be perceived inappropriate on tour sometimes, or is there anything that went through your heads like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, or is that not a thing at all?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Mary was very professional, and even though all of the advances that I made to try and hang out with her, she wouldn't, because she was professional. And I am from a different side of it, right? So you can obviously speak to this, Mary, but
I'm from the side that's not so professional.
well, I'm from the band. Like I do what I want.
What's that mean?
And
Yeah,
not to say
no,
like,
totally.
and not to be like any weirdness or whatever. Like not like I do what I want, whatever. It's like we are the people on tour that employ other people. So if like I want to like go and meet someone and ask them on a date, that's not a weird thing to do. That's pretty normal, and I could do that, and that's fine. Whereas like maybe it is a little bit more inappropriate to ask the chef of a band that you're opening up for on a date. It's like, like you don't date within a workplace for a good reason, like, because if something goes south or
Right.
you guys don't end up liking each other and things get awkward, it makes working together very hard.
What was it?
And she knew that, and she was very respectful of that, and I was respectful of that because of her, because I just liked her, and I really wanted to hang out with her, and I did it in a way to where it was respectful of that situation, and we didn't fully hang out like and go on dates until it was like an off day or the end of tour. Like we never really hung out like on show days. So
Yeah, we didn't start talking until like 2 weeks before tour ended.
I remember because
and-
that's the only time I was on.
yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean it's one of those things where I just respect the people that I work with so much too.
Mhm.
And to put anyone else in like an awkward position or, I just try to keep that to a minimum. And so with us, we really did that. And to be honest, everyone was rooting for us at that point. I mean, everyone on the tour. Neil would be in the kitchen literally every day at the end of tour. So at that point,
that's
everyone
awesome.
was like,
Well,
man, you guys
I was
need to
learning
date.
how to cook. Okay, Mary. So
Right. Sorry, that's right.
I wish that I was
learning how
on
to
that
cook
tour
vegetables.
only to see. Well, I'm sure Hartley has a bunch, but I would love to see the photos of you guys in the kitchen. That's cool.
I honestly don't think there are really any photos of us in the kitchen unless someone has one and we've never seen it.
I
think there's like a photo of me sitting with Alabama in like Albuquerque whenever we first got the first like Beyond Burger from the grocery store and we cooked Beyond Burgers that night. I think that's like the only a photo of me in the kitchen area.
Right.
And she was playing matchmaker then. She was like very much like, hey, do you want to come to the kitchen with me? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. I do.
Well, I'm happy that you guys could kind of navigate that, however easy or difficult it was for you to, I think it was
easy just because of the end of tour. And
yeah,
we really got to know each other after tour. So,
well, I think there's not a wrong way, but there definitely is like you guys said, there's things you did that were intentional and the way you kind of looked at it. And I think that's, I don't know. It's cool. Me saying it's cool you made it work out sounds so much different than what I mean to say, but I'm so happy you guys met each other. I
understand what you mean, because a lot of times it can not work out that way. A lot of times it ends up being a really messy situation and it makes it awkward for more than just the two people involved.
Right.
And I do understand what you're saying. We just got lucky. Like we said, we didn't really talk the whole tour, and it was like the last 2 weeks of the tour. By that point, most tours, the last 2 weeks, it's pretty lax. Things are like kind of winding up and are winding down. And everyone's kind of like in that mode where like, let's get this done so we can go home and go see our family. And
yeah, I mean, we were in California by that point.
Right.
I think we started hanging out in Portland, and then we were in California the next few days. And really, like, I was home. Like, I had stayed at my house for the last week and a half of shows.
That's awesome.
And that's like really when we started hanging out. Yeah.
Dang. It must be so hard. Like, I can't imagine what it's like to meet the love of your life while you're on tour and then have to work all day and then be like, but I just want to hang out with them. Like, because I know that feeling. It's just
she
like,
didn't care.
Yeah. I mean,
no,
that's what she
it was
acted like.
definitely hard. It was hard, but I had a job to do, and that always came first, like as much as I wanted to hang out with Neil, like,
she had it easy. She had something to keep her mind busy. I was just like
in the dressing room.
I'm going to play Call of Duty for 14 hours straight, so I don't think about this girl that I really want to just go talk to that's like right over there, but I can't talk to her.
Well, that's cute.
I remember one time Katie asked you guys what you wanted for after show food, or she made a list and you put the chef with the eyebrows on the after show.
Sounds like something I would do.
That's what he would call me, the girl with the eyebrows.
I mean, it's everybody has eyebrows, so I don't know.
I don't know. Look at her and tell me that hers aren't a defining factor.
I'm actually like thinking now, Mary, do people with blonde hair usually have brighter colored eyebrows or no?
Do they have brighter colored eyebrows?
Like do people's eyebrows match their hair?
Well, your eyebrows are supposed to be lighter. So my hair is like dirty blonde naturally. Obviously, this is not natural. Or maybe not obviously, but
yeah, I don't know.
It's pretty close to. It's not far from your natural color.
Oh, my natural is very darker. It's almost brown, but my eyebrows are black.
Really?
Like they're way darker than but your eyebrows are naturally supposed to be lighter than your hair color, and mine are not.
So it is a unique attribute.
It's very unique, and they're very defined.
It's like a defining, and I feel bad.
It's a defining feature of her face, and it's a great one. I loved it. Like, it was one of the things that I first noticed about her. It's one of the things I still love about her. And everyone always like, she's got like fake eyebrows, all this stuff. She does not have fake eyebrows. I'm just telling you guys.
I know.
Right
I get that. That's my number one message on Instagram is like,
oh, that must be so nice of people.
Oh yeah, I know.
Hey, by the way, can I ask you this personal thing? Just in, like, hey, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you have alopecia and you have to get your eyebrows tatted or something. Like, it's not really.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, I'm like, why would I choose to have it look like I sharpied on my eyebrows? Like, why would that be my go-to? But I love them. I do. I think that with the internet, especially, it's so easy for people to say comments that are rude, but they don't know that they're rude.
Yeah, they can't see
like,
your reaction.
Just like, right.
I do it all the time. just in real life. And I don't mean to. I don't mean to be rude. I think the biggest thing is like with the internet, like a lot of times you don't get a chance to say sorry or show someone that you actually learned your lesson or that you feel bad about it, you know, because a lot of times with no like face-to-face contact, like you don't see that you actually hurt someone most of the time.
As Justin Bieber
And sometimes
would say,
people are just trolls, you know, like a lot of times they don't even actually care that they're talking to a human being or not. But
Right.
is it too
kind of
late?
unfortunate.
Yeah. Yes. I think we did the whole interview, Neil and Mary.
Mary, we did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for
Well,
coming out and
thank you
hanging
for
out.
having me. Is this the part where I do Kevin's?
Wait, there's one other question we
Yeah.
have. Oh, Neil, do you want to ask the two questions or the what's up?
I have one more question for you since you already know the second one. It's only one. When you were on tour, did you use shower shoes?
Freak, yes, I did, because it is disgusting to not use shower shoes.
I'm offended.
I pee in our shower.
So, Adam, to be clear, you do not use shower
Never.
shoes?
Neil doesn't either.
No, I've never used shower shoes in my
Neither
life.
of us do.
What? Guys, okay, so I've definitely toured in some really great venues, and even those bathrooms are pretty disgusting.
I think Tom DeLonge said a really funny quote the other day. He's like, when you reach the top of rock and roll, you just enter into some sweaty dude's hockey locker.
That is very, very true.
Or he says something that's like very
17
similar to that. But it was like
shower
really
heads
funny because it's so true. It's like when you hit the biggest level of like touring, you just are in arenas and you use the locker rooms for like
Everything.
sweaty like athletes.
That is so good because it is absolutely true.
We hung up some sheets on the walls to make this look more like a real room, but it's actually
And it
still
still
the locker
smells
room.
like some guy's nutsack.
Oh my god. Where's Alex?
true.
Oh, he's in that cubby over there, just sitting inside of it. Oh, okay.
That's where they store all the sweaty jerseys. It's like, Alex, oh, okay.
Oh man. All right. Yeah. The last thing is the
last
Kevin
one.
Scam.
You already know. In your own words, send it off to Kevin Scaff.
All right, Kevin, take it away.